Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shaper Sessions. My name's Jake,
And I'm Russ.
and today we are joined by the great Leah Amick to talk about her new project, the Tangent Plant Stand. And we're really excited about this project. We both built one now, and it is a fantastic process. We're going to go through the whole design iteration process as well as some of the build itself.
Yeah, great project. Before we get into the show, we have a couple things that we would love for y'all to do while we're talking here today. We're going to have a live Q&A at the end of the show with Leah joining. So please, if you have any questions during the duration of the show, please type those down in the comments below, and any questions that you have, we'll answer at the end. We also have some great giveaways at the end of the show. We're going to give away a hardware kit for this project. We're going to give away one of our new cutters, which we just launched. And what do you say we give away a swag pack too?
Love a swag pack.
Perfect. To get entered for that giveaway, answer the poll question that's going to pop up toward the bottom of your screen. Maybe now, maybe sometime toward the middle of the show. Goose is going to take care of that and let me know in ear when it happens. And that poll question is, what is your favorite ShaperHub project? If you've done a ShaperHub project and you have one you love, tell us about it. We love to hear what you like and what you don't like. And if you have an aspirational project that you haven't done, but you think, oh man, this is really going to be the project for me once I get around to using or buying a Shaper Origin, then let us know that too. We like to know what resonates with you all.
Yeah. And for anyone that is tepid in starting to build a project and you're looking for kind of a satisfying and challenging build, but not too challenging, this is the project. This is doable on all skill levels, and by the end of it, you feel very satisfied and you have built a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think this is my new favorite ShaperHub project because it has the best ratio of time investment to like rewarding sense of accomplishment. Pretty straightforward, honestly, to zip out a couple parts. It's 2 parts repeated 3 times each to bolt together this plant stand, and you really can't get any better than that or quicker than that for something meaningful and beautiful that you can put in your home or give as a gift. Yeah. I love it. So without further ado, let's get Leah on. Hey, how's it going?
Hi there.
Hi, how are you guys?
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. We have
thanks
with
for having
us
me again.
Leah Amick. She's the creator of 3 projects now for us at Shaper Tools. Leah, could you walk us through those 3?
Yeah, sure. So the first one that I did for Shaper was the Elite lamp, table lamp, which you can see behind me. And it was pretty successful and fun. And I actually learned Shaper Origin with that project. So it was a fun process. From there, I designed the correlate trivet, and that came out in December. And it's just a decorative trivet with a repeated pattern on 2 sides. And then now the plant stand.
Yeah, awesome. We've done all 3 here now. The correlate trivet, definitely quick and easy, great for a gift, hence the December release. The Elate lamp, super complex, I gotta say, and I think maybe double-digit number of people out in the world have made that one now, but it's a favorite around here.
Yeah,
because of your like really clever fixturing and assembly methods. Like we learned a ton making that project, and for anyone who's had their Shaper Origin for a couple months or a year and is looking for an advanced project to step up their game, or somebody who's new and who's looking to just dive right into the deep end from the start, that's the project that I'd recommend to them. And now this beautiful thing. I don't think that we've showed this off actually yet. This is the Tangent Plant Stand, and what's unique about this, not to Leah, I want to have you talk about the entire design process of this, but we have the camera with the close-up here, so I'm just going to show this off. The cool thing about this is that it's adjustable. So this version, the final version, has 3 thumb screws, 1, 2, 3, that you can tighten or loosen, and then we've got some slots here in these stretchers. It expands and contracts. But you went through quite a few design iterations to reach this level of simplicity. We saw some of the mechanisms that you designed earlier, and we were blown away, and we would love to talk about those.
Yeah, sure. So initially, I just had an inkling of an adjustable plant stand because it irks me when the pot is like way smaller than the stand, or if there isn't something to kind of balance out the pot on top of the plant stand, like if it doesn't have those arms on the top. And the few adjustable ones that I've seen out there, it's always four-legged and it seems a bit cumbersome to like actually adjust it. And I felt that the mechanisms were not integrated nicely into the form of the stand. So initially I just had the concept of like this tripod triangle that could expand and contract using a sliding mechanism. So from there, I designed quite a few iterations in various complexity levels. I knew that I was designing this specifically for Shaper Origin, which I've worked with your team a bit on how to design it. And so I have some pieces that would require custom metal parts, all the way to one piece that just uses wedges instead of those thumb screws and threaded inserts. So there would be no hardware at all, and you would cut everything on Shaper Origin. So refining it down and picking one concept was basically just deciding the level of complexity for this project and how much hardware or other items I'd want to include. And so I kind of landed somewhere in the middle where it has these decorative thumb screws, which I think really elevate the design. But then no, like you don't have to cut metal, you don't have to make the hardware yourself. It's all off the shelf.
Yeah, awesome. Goose, can we pull up the PDF that Leah sent of some of these original mechanism designs and ideas? So, is this the top here? This looks like the final. Here we go. Yeah, so this is an example of one of those metal plate designs, right? And so, walk me through how this one would work.
Yeah, so it's kind of a similar concept, except the slider would be on the top of the stretcher rather than on the side. So you'd have these custom metal brackets kind of that would create that the pin that slides through the slots.
And in your mind, you were thinking aluminum and cut those little plates with Origin?
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. So actually, when I had created the Elate lamp, I had played around with cutting metal and bending it for the bracket that holds the light socket. And so I had
see.
played around. I had tested it enough to know that I could cut metal semi easily, although it's more time consuming.
So that's that one. This looks like a variation on a similar thing. Different metal
Yes.
plates here.
So on the first one, I didn't like that I wanted to simplify it, so I had the plates kind of just protruding on the top, but I wasn't a huge fan of having them so visible. So with this, I was trying to find a way to hide that detail once the pot is actually sitting on the stand.
Okay. And yet, you still moved on from that to, this looks like closer to the current thumb screw design, but with some different joinery, right?
Right. Yeah. So I liked the idea of adding some curvature. So in this concept, it just added some more curvature on the top and the bottom and tapered legs. And then I moved the slot that creates that sliding mechanism to the side rather than on the top.
Very cool. And goes to show there are a zillion different ways, even if you work with just this project as the files are designed, there are a zillion different ways that you could finish it. I left the edges of mine square, as is in the project instructions PDF for the tangent plant stand as it's been released. But Jake, you were talking about doing that round over on yours just for fun.
Yeah, I think that outside roundover is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I actually do have the first one that I made, and it has that round over here.
Yeah.
It's a detail that I
very
really
nice.
like to include in my furniture. So.
Cool. We've got a couple more concepts. Yeah, Goose?
Yeah, this next one's one of my favorite, other than the final, of course. But
Yeah.
Yeah, so the last one is using a wedge instead of the thumb screw, and then using friction from that wedge to keep the form of the assembly in place. And I actually have my prototype that I made. And it was between this one or the other one. The other one was much more simple. This required kind of a flip in order to cut both sides of the end here. So in the end, I went with the thumb screw concept to simplify the cut, but I think I'll still probably develop this other concept a bit more and release that at some point.
Yeah, I love that. Something really nice about just using pure wood joinery.
Definitely.
And then go ahead back to the PDF. We've got one more here. This looks like a pinch on a disc, a slotted
Yeah, so
disc.
that one I'm not sure how feasible it is, but I wanted to kind of get away from all the rest, create like this triangular structure. I wanted to see if there was an alternative to that, just something completely different.
Yeah, I
Maybe
love
a little
that.
bit easier to adjust, but more independent. The legs are all independent of each other rather than dependent on each other to
Right.
move. So,
Sure. So you could move one and then not move the other two.
Very cool. I gotta say, I love all of your models. And what is the um, hello software that you're using?
that's Fusion 360.
That's Fusion. That is awesome.
How much of a sketcher are you? Because
It depends on the project.
yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering. I go straight to modeling a lot of the time, and Jake here's a sketcher, and we don't butt heads about it. It takes both kinds, you know. But sometimes I wish I was more of a sketcher, and I
Okay.
see all these beautiful models that you send, and sometimes I wonder, like, oh, is Leah a sketcher, or is she like me? Does she just go straight to 3D modeling? Damn the consequences, you know?
I'm right in the middle. If I have a concept or a project that is really dependent on aesthetics, I'll
Yeah.
usually start with sketching. If it's a mechanical one like this one, I already kind of knew how it needed to work, and it was easier to put it in Fusion 360 to just like see that I could get everything functioning and then work on the aesthetics of it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um, that's good. That's good to know that there's room for both.
Yeah, of course.
Yep, sure.
And how does this compare with your typical design practice? Because I would say that making projects for the marketing arm of a power tools company is a pretty niche subset of industrial design, right? Um,
Sure.
you told us about some of your other projects before we started this video, and I was really interested in them. You mentioned, are they top secret? Can I mention them on air?
You can mention that I'm working on things in that industry, but
Uh,
I didn't tell you anything that you can't mention. There you
okay, okay. So a wine cellar, which is just bonkers to me. You're designing a wine cellar for one of your clients, and I was wondering what your process is for something like that, and how that compares to your process for something like this.
Yeah, sure. So that also depends a lot on the project. I do have projects where I start with just a round of sketches and then refine from there and then go into 3D modeling. Um, Pretty much all of my projects, I start with like 3 to 5 concepts, just rough concepts, and then go to my client and talk to them about what they like, what they don't, and where I can go from there. And that's been the same process with the Shaper projects, more or less. With the wine cellars, it's a little different because it's more spatial design, and the clients have a very specific idea of what they want. So, and as well as like how many bottles need to fit in that space. So that's an important aspect of that. So it's um, a little bit more constrained on what I can do. So it's not
Sure.
really a lot of concepts that I bring to the client and then they pick one. It's more like they tell me what they want and how many bottles to fit, and then there's only so many ways to do it, really.
One thing that we did here for the first time for Jake's chair that he made last month was model making or prototyping, both on a smaller scale and on a full scale. Like we made, I think, a small mock-up of the chair to make sure that the proportions were right, and then a full-size MDF just slapped together, dimensionally accurate but not aesthetically accurate at all chair to make sure that it
Right.
fit the body of the person who is going to be sitting in it.
Yep.
I could see how for something smaller like a plant stand, you might skip that process. But are you planning on doing any model making for the wine cellar?
No, it's pretty much all just
Yeah. Okay.
in the computer because I've actually been working on quite a few different wine cellars, so there's only so many models I can make. I think I'm up to 5 right now.
Yeah.
Um, so for that, I didn't, but at least for this plant stand, I made at least the moving mechanism a model of just that part. I didn't even make the legs because I already knew that part would work. I recently did a dining table just for myself, and I made I think there were quarter scale models of that just to kind of look at the proportions and see it in person because it's very different seeing a physical object than it is seeing it on your computer.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Is there anywhere that we can see that dining table? Because I would love to see it. I know that I haven't yet. And based on
It
the
is
rest
on
of
my
your
website.
work, okay,
So,
I would
yeah.
love to see it. We've got Ted in the comments. Ted, maybe if you could put out Leah's website so that the viewers can check out that dining table and the rest of her work. I think everybody would love that. Is there anything that we should have asked you that we haven't yet, Leah?
I guess we did one other client that I work with that's pretty big is electronic accessories. So
Okay.
that's kind of why I call myself a multidisciplinary designer because I have this
Yeah.
like really broad range of projects. So I'll do the wine cellar or a plant stand or then iPhone cases and wireless chargers. So
Cool.
Very cool.
Is the process for that any different from the wine cellar, or does it still kind of fit into that
it's just
sketch,
kind of the
model,
same.
ideate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, I'm sure, I hope at least, that everyone has plenty of questions for you. So everyone drop those into the Q&A. If you're just joining us, we're here with Leah Amick, the designer of our latest ShaperHub project, the Tangent plant stand. It's an adjustable plant stand, a great project for beginners and advanced users who just want to zip out a lot of something. Honestly, there are some really cool fixturing processes in this project that can allow you to bust out probably 5 of these in a day to give as gifts or something like that. Jake just made one or most of one this morning.
Yeah, it's the perfect gift because it's kind of a afternoon project, a couple days for finishing, and you're done.
It's the perfect gift because if you've ever given a plant stand to someone, you have no idea what diameter their pots are. Unless you're like sneaking into their house and measuring their pots. You have no idea. I've tried it. I was way off. So make an adjustable plant stand. No, I didn't try sneaking in. I tried sneaking in and I was way off. I went to the neighbor's house accidentally. So far off. No, I was off on the pot diameter. Fortunately, I was off on the large size. It was just not as graceful as it could have been otherwise. It all fit, but it wasn't perfect. And with an adjustable plant stand, you can really get it perfect for the people that you love.
I have a question for Leah.
Okay.
Do you see yourself making a larger version of this? Possibly like taller or even like for like a big pot?
Yeah, it is definitely a scalable design. Actually, the prototype that I have here is a little bit taller than the one that ended up on ShaperHub. So I could definitely see myself making larger ones.
Cool.
Or even smaller ones, little tabletop versions.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have a tiny cactus at my desk, but the pot is like 1.5 inches in diameter. I'm going to make a tiny tangent
Itty-bitty
plant stand for my
stand,
baby
yeah.
cactus.
I'm
Yeah.
imagining it in like, thick teak and as an outdoor thing.
Yeah.
We haven't
that
cut
sounds
teak
cool.
in here yet.
We haven't.
Yeah.
We should try that sometime. Okay.
All right.
Well, please, more questions in the comments. We will answer them live with Leah at the end of the show. And if you haven't answered our giveaway poll, or if you're just joining us and you don't know what the giveaway is, or if you're watching us live for the first time and you're thinking, "Oh, where's this giveaway?" If you're watching us live and not joining us on demand for a later viewing date, please answer the poll that's going to pop up at the bottom of your screen. The question is, what is your favorite ShaperHub project? And you'll be entered to win. We've got a set of hardware for this plant stand that we're giving away. We're going to give away one of our new cutters that we just released. We've got a couple cool ones that we've been talking about and that we'll rep here in a little while. And we're going to give away a swag pack, I think is the third thing. Is that right, Jake?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. And we're here with Leah Amick. We're making the Tangent Plant Stand, newest project on ShaperHub. We're going to get cutting.
Yeah, let's get into cutting some elements. There's a really detailed and beautiful PDF that comes with this. I really love Leah's style and how she puts together her PDFs. They're just a pleasure to use. And we're going to go through a couple of things that we ran into and finish the plant stand. We're going to build a stretcher and a leg and talk about how you do the threaded insert in the end. All right, this whole thing is done on Workstation, which I always love. I love when a project is all based around Workstation and primarily done on the shelf. So for my stretcher, I'm set up on the normal size shelf, standard shelf that comes with Workstation, and this is my stock. Cut it down to 6 inches in length, 1.5 inches in width, and it's all 3/4 thick. We went ahead and cut the 30-degree angle prior, just so I didn't have to run off to the miter saw mid-show. And we've already done the threaded inserts, but we'll talk about those. Okay. Workspace setup and repeatability is the name of the game, always. So I have a piece of MDF, double stuck tape down to my shelf so that I have a nice clean reference there, and I'm pressing firmly back into my spoil board. Make sure that's nice and stuck. One thing I've done as well is I've turned my cam keys all the way down so that they're flat, so that there's no space behind, because I don't want to deflect this MDF spoil board at all. I want it to be nice and solid. I already have my workspace set up for this, and I named them.
Good job, Jake.
I feel very proud.
That's positive reinforcement right there.
And let me tell you,
I just got a dog, so we're big on the positive reinforcement these days.
Being able to name a workspace like this, and we're fortunate here to have multiple shelves, so I'm actually working on 2 different shelves. But if I'm making a couple of these, I can jump back and forth, and I still have my workspace called the tangent stretcher.
Mm-hmm.
I have created a grid off of the top and right side, and I place my file right there. We're going to do this in a couple shots. This is a through cut. That is for the the thumb screw, and this is a hybrid lap joint mortise and tenon, which is super cool.
Pretty cool. Yeah, mouthful, but very cool and beautiful. Especially beautiful because we're doing mixed wood species on this one, white oak and walnut.
Yeah.
So that joinery really pops.
All right, I'm going to do my Z-Touch up here on my workstation just because I don't have enough room back here.
One thing that I think is really elegant about this project is that it uses 1 1/4-inch router bit for the whole thing.
Oh, it's so great.
So easy.
Yeah. And
yeah, that was actually very intentional. The 3/4-inch thick wood, and making sure that you didn't have to switch out the bit, so it's just all easy.
I love it.
And it's perfectly proportional. We do now sell an inch-long cutter. If you wanted to go in and make this inch thick, you could.
Inch thick and bigger in other dimensions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jake's been talking about a taller plant stand for weeks now.
I know.
Yeah.
I think I want it like armchair height.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to do this in a couple of passes. I'm going to take some deeper cuts today for the sake of time. So let's get cutting.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to pop over here so we don't get too much noise in the microphone. Pop behind the camera and do a little narration. Jake is cutting the slot first, as he mentioned, and this is clearance for those thumb screws that allow the adjustability and clamp the pieces of the plant stand together. Going at depths of 0.375 inches per pass on this one. And normally what we recommend is tying your pass depth approximately to the diameter of your cutter. So if you're using a 1/4-inch cutter like we are today, starting, at least as a starting point, starting with a 1/4-inch depth of cut. But Jake and I have been doing this for a while, and we know when we can bump it up a little bit. So we're going 0.375 today, just to speed this process up for the sake of time, especially using offsets. That allows you to go a little bit heavier, get maybe a little less perfect line-on-line action for your cut, but then you get to go in with 0 offset for your finishing pass and clean that all up. I hear the vacuum off.
I want to take a quick pause and just talk about everything that's happening up here, because there's a lot of cut paths. So you want to make sure that you are working on the right one. When you first open this up, this is going to be a pocket. That's that 3/8 deep pocket. And you're going to have to change that to an inside cut, as well as that's already an outside cut, and you have to clean this up. But anytime that you are around too many cut paths, you'll see this select button pop up. So if you are getting tired of inching around and trying to get the right one, go ahead and just cycle through. And once you find the one you want, it will stick to that a lot easier. Okay, just want to make that note.
Yeah, awesome. It does get a little busy over there, but that select tool is really handy. Okay, here we go. So Jake's going in for this pocketing bit, and pocketing is just going to clear out most of the area of that lap joint. The other reason why I like using a 0.375 inch depth for this project is because that's more or less how the project is laid out. We've got a lot of things going in halves with this lap joint, this mortise and tenon lap joint. So we're going to cut the stretcher down to half thickness. Then when we go to the leg, we're going to cut the leg down to half thickness as well. And it's really convenient to do that in one pass if you're comfortable and confident in doing that. What pocketing does is allows you to clear out a big area without having to worry about the offsets, because the offsets are built in for you. That offset is about half the diameter of your router bit. So pocketing with a 1/4 inch router bit, you get a built-in 1/8 inch offset. And then when you switch that to an inside cut, which I think is what Jake just did there, then you get to go in and just trim off that 1/8 inch offset and leave your nice finish pass. I think we're doing, yep, part of the joint there, the nice edge. And I think what's happening now, I can't see the monitor, but I think what's happening now is Jake is trimming the outside profile of the stretcher. I'm gonna make that an inside cut, I think, based on the way this is programmed, even though you might think it's an outside cut. Leah did a couple of little programming tricks for this one to make sure that that cut path fit all inside the boundary of your workpiece, so you aren't overstretching too much and you're only cutting what's necessary, which I think is pretty clever. So that's why that's an inside cut, which you might not expect, but still the same process. Start with an offset, cut the whole thing to depth, and then go back in with 0 offset for a finish pass. One cool thing that I know Leah did for this project as well is build in some joinery offset, similar to our box joint setup, where in programming a box joint on Origin, you have a glue gap, which you can calculate as needed to give just a little bit of gap between every finger of the box joint. Leah did a similar thing here and pre-baked 5/1000ths, I think. You can correct me when we're done with this little cutting section, but I think it's a 5/1000ths gap in there so that it's much easier to join this mortise and tenon, or the half lap joint.
Yeah, that's correct.
What do you say, Jake? Can I come back?
You can come back.
All right.
Beautiful. Just knocking some fuzz off with my handy dandy sanding stick. And that is done. Now, what I was worried when I first started on this project, because I cut into my little block here, I was worried that I was going to lose my reference, but it works out so that you have just a little bit of straight edge on your block still to butt your piece up against. So don't worry, this works. I know, Leah, in your setup, you had pieces on all 3 sides, it seemed. Kind of really nestled in
Yeah,
there.
I was just being extra careful that it didn't move.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, good to err on the side of caution. And in the project, I think we mentioned this, but in the project as it's written, you would cut this part first and then take this part over to the table saw or the miter saw and cut that 30-degree miter on the end to join where the 3 sides join together. But for the sake of the show, we went ahead and did that first. So that side's not really useful for a reference for us, but for you doing this at home, that side will be valuable as a reference to you if you follow the instructions as written.
Just show that off real quick. So we have that half depth and that nice little tenon.
Nice.
Lock it in. Okay, I want to show what the setup looks like for doing the threaded insert
Sure. Yeah.
briefly before I go into the leg. And we're going to need our angle fence.
So that's where it went.
That's where I hide it. All right, so on the front face of Origin or of Workstation, you have a threaded hole down here and an angle guide. That can slip over. That threads right in there. And that's going to help us maintain our 30 degrees. It's listed down below, but I actually think we both decided the best way to do it was to just feel it out. Make sure that it is flush, well, up here, flush with your top and at the right angle. Tighten that down. And clamp just like that. I ended up using the Festool sliding F-style clamps for this application just because they put a little bit more direct pressure in there like that, and it's kind of a narrow piece. At that point, you can make a grid directly off of the top here, place the file that comes with the project, and install your threaded inserts.
Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of different styles of threaded inserts that we tried. You can see that Jake used a stainless variety. Can you hold this up to the Origin cam? Jake used a stainless variety of these sharp knife edge brass inserts, which we love here at Shaper.
It's good for, particularly good for really dense hardwoods because the knife is thinner. It's not going to expand and crack as much. But if you're dealing with a softer wood,
we've got these,
which are really strong and secure. So you can see that tooth is a little bit heavier.
Yeah, Leah actually clued us in also to a version of these that have slots cut down the length of the thread, so they cut more than push, which I think is probably better for hardwoods.
Yep.
And then I really like these guys. These are press-in inserts. The problem that I have with these threaded knife edge inserts sometimes is that they're difficult to get in perfectly straight. And with this joinery, I wanted my threaded insert to be nice and straight, so I found it easier to push that in and add just a little bit of super glue or epoxy to hold it in really firmly than I did to use the threaded insert.
Yep.
And it's really easy to adapt this project to use any kind of threaded insert you want just by measuring and using offsets.
Yeah. If you do use a threaded one, make sure you buy the tool that comes with it.
Oh, yeah.
The application tool.
We've got a couple different tools here, so you could show this one off for the brass.
So you may look at that and think, oh, I could just use a flathead screwdriver. No. You're going to have a much better time.
You could, but you'd have a bad time
using that.
It's got a nice little spring plunger in there that holds everything together, and the slot, the driver, is fitted perfectly for that slot. For this softwood threaded insert, this has a different style. This has a hex driver that fits right in the pocket of that and drives it nice and straight. These both also have depth stops, so when you get to the right depth, they start to retract on their own, which I think is nice.
Another thing to note for this project is if you use a threaded insert that isn't included in the PDF, it just needs to be ½ an inch long or shorter.
Yes, I believe that cut depth is 0.48 for these particular ones. So yeah,
For these,
and that's
sure.
because of that 30-degree angle.
Yes, exactly.
Want to make sure
Otherwise, you'll cut through the other side.
Yeah, you don't want to have a blowout. Yeah, exactly. Good catch. Thank you. All right, stretcher done. We always cut our tenons first here at Shaper, so a little complicated, but we'll consider this the tenon. And then Jake's going to get us set up for the leg, which includes the mortise.
All right, I'm working on my slightly wider shelf.
That's a big shelf there, Jake.
It's a big
That's not
old
stock.
shelf. That's not stock, but you know what? It's okay. It gives me a little bit more surface. I originally made this for cutting inlay material or for the marker tube project. It just gives me more surface area. So I'm not putting a ton of pressure out here because my piece is only so deep, but it is wide, and I want support across the way. All right, same situation. I got a block of MDF chucked up underneath the camera, and I'm pressing directly into, there we go, directly into that, and firmly up against this. Quick note, I put double-sided tape all the way up to the tip because we're going to cut a little piece free here. And once you cut all the way through, it's going to want to kick around on you because it gets caught between the MDF and that. So prepare yourself for that.
Make sure that stays stuck down. How'd you find that out, Jake?
The hard way.
As we do.
All right. Firmly up
Nice.
against that.
Lined up there.
And down. I didn't set my height. This is one of the most satisfying things, I think, is workstation setup and getting it totally flush with the top surface.
Mm-hmm. I would say the most satisfying thing is switching workspaces and not having to regrid and having it easy to find your workspace because you named it.
You mean like this? Where is it? There it is. Tangent leg. Bingo.
For anyone wondering what is this black magic that Jake's doing, we have a Shaper session on our pro tips, everything that you need to know to get you started off the right way with Origin, and we cover workspace management in that one. We also cover scanning and gridding and all of the things that Jake did prior to this show to set this all up so that it's as easy as possible going forward.
Yes.
And if you follow those steps in that show, you'll be as pro as Jake, setting workspaces and naming them and being able to return to them whenever you please. It's pretty nice.
Same deal as before. I have a top right grid. So I grid off of the back side of my material and the right side. Actually, I gridded directly off of that piece of MDF because that's the same. It's a shared line.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't actually have to grid off of the piece itself. And wow, look at that.
What do we got?
A little piece of
Speaking of little chunks.
Let's go ahead and clear my cut history. And we're going to do this in a couple different passes. I'm going to focus on the mortise. Let's call it the mortise lap first, and then we're going to do the profile. So the outside profile. And I have a couple of tips for that as well. One, before I get started, when you're pushing out in the direction like this and you're working against the grain, it's always best to do a little bit of a relief plunge. So before I start this process, I'm going to set my depth to full depth, my offset to 0, and I will plunge right at this kind of precipice point and retract. I'm not even going to move. I'm just going to kind of make that divot to relieve that stress so that if I come around that corner, I'm not going to accidentally tear out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, first depth is 0.375 again. Actually, no, that's not true. First depth's all the way through because
You're
we're
doing
going
that
to
slot first.
We're going to use the helix.
Nice.
So I'm going to stay perfectly still and let helix do the work. And then I'll come out to here and do a pocket.
All right, I'm going to clear out so
See you
we
in a sec.
don't get too much mic noise over here. For anyone who's joining us halfway through the show here, or 3/4 of the way through the show, we're making Leah Amick's Tangent Plant Stand, her latest project on ShaperHub, her third project on ShaperHub, and we love every single one of them. Jake is cutting the leg for this 3-sided plant stand, cut the rest of it this morning, and this is all we need to wrap up. If you didn't catch this before, please make sure to post any of your questions in the comments. We have Leah live with us, and she'll be answering questions as well as Jake and I today. If you're watching this on demand, please join us live next time, where we do live Q&A at the end of the show, and we do giveaways. Today we're giving away a hardware kit for this project. We're giving away one of our new cutters just released on our Shaper Tools accessories store, and we're giving away a swag pack, which is a shop banner, a hat, and a pack of stickers. Jake just used the built-in helix function to cut the full depth of that slot. And what the helix function does is if you have a feature that's entirely within Origin's corrective range, Origin, as you hold it still, will move through the corrective range to cut that feature to full depth by helixing, or in the case of a slot, like zigzagging more than helixing, all the way down to its depth, clearing it all out in one go. Really easy way to clear out that slot to full depth. Then he cut the half lap pocket and then inside cut, and it looks like here he's getting ready to do the outside pass on the profile of this leg, making sure to plunge quickly also at the exit of that perimeter path to make sure that you don't get any blowout. This is a really important tip when you come around the side of a part like this and you're cutting against the grain. As with any router, it's possible to get some blowout there, and so what we like to do here is we just plunge right through that exit point, and that basically eliminates any possibility of tear out. It's a really easy way to help yourself finish a project real cleanly, not have any big splinters or chips flying out right when you're close to the end of a project. It's always disappointing when you get that close and you mess it up right at the last minute. So thinking ahead will save you a good bit there. Nice thing about this project is that the stock is cut basically to width, so there is some material removal around the ends to shape the profile of this part, but cutting the length of it's pretty easy, not much material to remove there because it's already to width. That's one roughing pass. I think we're going to do this in 2 roughing passes and then 1 finishing pass. With the offsets here, you can get a little more aggressive on the roughing passes if you're comfortable and confident. And so then when you come back on that finishing pass, you have just a little bit to clean up. You can clean that little bit left up at full depth and leave a nice clean surface. The less material you remove with Origin, obviously the easier it is to control. It's a hand tool at the end of the day. While it's autocorrect for your hands, the more error your hands introduce to the system, the more Origin has to work against you or with you to compensate for that. So as you practice working with Origin, you're going to become better at working together with the machine, and you'll get some really incredible results. But definitely we recommend 1/4 inch depth passes for 1/4 inch cutters to start. Good way to build up some confidence there and practice before you go too far into making more aggressive cuts like Jake is on the show here today. So one thing he just did also was remove some of the scrap from that roughing pass too. You always want to get rid of any loose material in your workspace so that there's no chance of that router bit coming in and catching anything that you don't want it to. You want to cut the workpiece, and the workpiece only. You don't want to get any scrap caught between the router bit and your workpiece. That's asking for a bad time. Nice smooth finishing pass here. Origin keeping everything right on the line.
Looking good. Knock some fuzz away. I love this thing.
I like that you just rotate it a little bit and it's a fresh bit of sandpaper.
Okay. That is cut to a 0-inch offset. We know that there is a baked-in offset for the actual mortise part, so I don't need to worry about that. However, I'm going to need to dial in that shape, right? So we're currently cut 0 to 0. And it's tight, and I'm going to leave it.
That's good.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
If it's not fitting together, start working in those small increments of negative thousandths of an inch, so a negative 0.003. Be extra cautious that you don't mix up 003 with 03.
Sounds like that's coming from experience.
It happens all the time. And that is a nice fit. Nice friction fit. So I'll pop this off and show you.
Some good double-sided tape there, Jake.
Good double-sided tape. Voila.
Perfect.
Where should we go? Let's go right here. There we go. Let's fit together just like so. Now a little bit of a reveal too. It's just really nice.
Beautiful.
Little button.
You didn't even make me do the assembly on this one.
I know. Oh, you get to do this part.
All right, here we go. Let's bolt this thing together. Now y'all can see how it comes together. We have 3 parts with these. Here we go. We got 3 parts with these threaded inserts. I'm going to try to do this while showing the camera. I've got my 1/4-20 thumb screw here. I'm going to screw that in to this insert. And then I've got one more. And it's amazing how this whole thing just stiffens up once you get it all together. Get this in this threaded insert. That's starting to come together. I'm going to loosen these other 2 just a little bit so that it can slide and come to its, we'll call it natural resting place. Tighten up one at a time. There we go.
Voila.
That's a plant stand right there. This is the loose one. Got to be careful of that.
Awesome.
Love it.
And an absolute pleasure to make. Thank you so much, Leah.
Thanks, Leah. We
So
love
glad
it.
you like it.
Yeah, right on. Please, if you have a question about Origin, join us live for our next session. We'll see you there when we do Q&A live at the end and giveaways. All good stuff. No reason not to.